presented by Scott Lanzer from Emerson Climate Technologies, and he's the marketing sales guru out of the Sydney office.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get name tags made, yeah. But he's going to talk about some applications and ways that you can deal with people like me on your staff. Enjoy your class. I have a present for you too.
Oh,
and I think
super.
if Dave does anything wrong, just throw it at him, okay?
All right, keep him awake there.
Well, that's a guarantee.
So, hello, my name is Scott Lanzer. It's great to be here today, to be part of this event, and hopefully at the end of this you'll come away with something and have some interest in really what we're doing with the SMS group. So, along those lines, anyone ever heard of Emerson before? Or okay, it's not. We don't make the VCRs and DVD players that you would buy at Walmart and things of that nature. We're actually, it's actually a conglomerate of different companies. Some of them you might recognize. We don't make a whole lot of consumer-based products, but InSinkErator is one. You might look at your garbage disposal and realize if you have an InSinkErator, that's actually one of them. We do have our friends from Liebert have a booth over here. They do basically air conditioning for computers and servers and things of that nature. I am in what's called the Climate Technologies Group. I started with Copeland in 1993 in engineering. I worked in engineering for 7-8 years and then went into really flying around the world and doing technical seminars for different end users, contractors, things of that nature on our product. And from that, then they took me and put me in the dark side of sales and marketing. And so I've been able to really take our industry and kind of give them some nuts and bolts marketing, what I call it at least, meaning that it's a flyer that actually contains good information that a service tech needs, a person that would come to your house, service, whether it's refrigeration, air conditioning, things like that, but give them something that's just not a flyer that ends up in the trash, that sort of thing. So my side of marketing is trying to make it technical enough that they'll want to keep that flyer, or at least want to pursue a little bit more information out of that. So to understand a little bit about what I'm going to talk today is that Emerson Climate, we make a component. The component is called a compressor. And I had done this seminar maybe a few months ago or so, and it's kind of hard to explain an air conditioning system, what would be in your house, without having a diagram. It's tough to do it in the air. So to understand a little bit about this slide, and again, I'm not going to make you a technician, but the evaporator is typically what's in your house. This would be what sits on top of your furnace, and this is what helps to make that cold air happen in your house if you have air conditioning. This is what sits outside, the condenser. That sits outside of your house. This is what has the shrubs growing around it and all the ivy and people trying to hide it by putting boxes and everything around that device. But in honesty, to understand how an air conditioning system works, really simple, is that what I'm doing here is I'm taking heat out of the house by absorbing that heat. And of course, by absorbing heat, it makes it feel cold. The air feels cold, right? If you take heat away from something, it feels cold. That's what's happening. So I'm absorbing the heat into the evaporator, and then I'm rejecting that heat out of the condenser. So if you have a condenser outside your house and it's full of bushes and leaves and ivy growing all over it and whatever else, plywood leaning up against it, you try to want to remove that stuff, because if this can't reject the heat, then this can't absorb the heat. And then therefore you don't have much air conditioning effect within your house. A little tip there for a homeowner. But for us, in order to do that, we have to move this heat from one desired place to an undesired place. So again, I'm going to take that heat from an undesired place inside your house and move it to a desired place and reject that heat. And that's where the compressor comes in. The compressor compresses that gas. You might have heard the term Freon before, refrigerant maybe. Your refrigerator works the exact same way. So by causing those different pressures, we allow for that refrigerant to move, and we can move the heat from one part to another. Okay. So through all of that, we look at all our different marketing out there, and we say, well, how can we make our compressors to be not only replaceable within themselves, so if you have a unit that you have a compressor in, and the compressor goes bad, we would like to replace or have the homeowner or contractor replace that with one of ours, right? That keeps our install base. And then if there's a competitor, we'd like to replace that as well. So we came out with a variety of different marketing and all that kind of stuff. But really, after looking at it, I said, well, what if I make an app that is a cross-reference? So again, kind of product-oriented, that I can take a compressor, look it up, and tell me exactly what compressor replaces that compressor, whether it's a former, maybe obsolete model that we had, Copeland, or maybe a competitor out there that they had that installed that now we can, because of our service channel, we can kind of recommend a compressor replacers. So as that happens, that's how the whole idea starts to develop in producing these apps. Good. So all these apps, recently up in Chicago, we were actually for what they call the ASHRAE. It's our big, really the largest trade show for our industry. They actually rent out all the McCormick Center up there in order to do that. We won for our suite of apps called the Mobile Toolbox. We won the award for software up there this year, so the Gold Award. So kind of nice to kind of look at how the app's developed. XREF is just basically, and I'll go to each one of these. XREF is basically a compressor cross-reference. Fault Finder is based back on understanding product specifications, and I'll talk a little bit more about that one. XCheck is actually a cross-reference for our metering devices, our flow devices. PT chart gives that personnel a pressure-temperature correlation in order to determine different system saturation, superheat, and conditions of the refrigerant within the system. White Rogers is actually a company that makes thermostats for us, but this is their cross-reference. And eSaver is kind of based around a homeowner having questions for replacement options on systems. That's good. So first up is XREF. So we had all this good information in books. The problem with books and literature, what happens to them as soon as they're printed? Obsolete. Yeah, they're obsolete, right? They're outdated. And if you send these out to any one of our 4,000 different wholesaler branches, it's quite expensive to keep doing that mailing on a regular basis. But if you produce an app, what's it cost really to update the app? The person's time to download the new update on their phone, right? It doesn't cost so much on the front end as far as having to go and work with a company to be able to produce or set up a new database for that. Very cheap compared to mailing out and producing all this literature that would go out and mail to our customers. So as you look at this, it's real simple to kind of work this app. And these are all available free through the various, whether you have the BlackBerry or the iPhone or the Android, all through those third-party different marketplace or iTunes or what's BlackBerry App World, something like that. So BlackBerry's still around? Barely. It's been tough for them, right? Yeah. But what we did was we said, well, we'll have an initial, you put the initial compressor model number in, you do a search, and really this is searchable first 3 digits, and then it swipes across for different replacement options. You could have up to 3 different replacement options for that compressor. So now what you have there is simply put the contractor can go out, look at the compressor that he currently has, hey, I need a new compressor, and boom, he can look that up, and he can actually go where to buy, which will do a proximity search of, you know, who has that in stock, that sort of thing. So really that's where this has kind of led to really understand those apps. So good. So through that, this is as of last month's data, mature. So essentially put, when you look at the different platforms, and I don't know if you can really see the color differences, can you? Okay. Android would be in the blue, the Apple would be in the red at the top, and BlackBerry's down at the bottom. You know, you're looking roughly about, what, just a quick add, about maybe 9,000, 8,500, 9,000 different downloads for that simple app. And you think for our industry, it doesn't have, you know, car crashes, right? Music downloads. That's not bad. It's not bad for an industry that, you know, it's a very static thinking industry that it's just a compressor in the system. But again, for us, from marketing side, What does this really mean to me? It means that, well, we have almost 9,000, maybe 10,000 this month of our end users going out and using this app. And with SMS's help, we're able to track this, and our retention is like 89%, meaning that when people download our apps, 89% of the time they keep the app on the phone. That's outstanding compared to most people that would go through it and be like, oh, this is worthless. How many do you delete off your phone, right? But again, when you look at that, that means that every day our marketing is getting out there in front of someone, looking at the Emerson logo, looking at the Copeland product, understanding, and hopefully, my thought on aftermarket is that if I can, again, as you sell compressors, you would have some sort of replacement on those compressors. So your aftermarket's going to grow because your install base grows. But if I can, for lack of a better term, maybe steal or replace my competitors with our compressors, that's almost like a new sale, isn't it? That's an install base that I didn't formally have, but I'm able to close that gap between, new OEMs, your Carriers, your Rheems, your Goodmans, your Trains, your Lennoxes, your Yorks, Nordyne, all those guys that sell systems. Again, those compressors, the closer to that line we get, that's like a new sale. Okay. So as you look, kind of on the marketing side, we came out with several different flyers. There's always trade shows that happen earlier in the year that we get huge spikes because we're handing out literature on this. QR codes. Kind of looks like a little gray and white dot matrix that you can now scan into here, and it drops you right into the app world in order to get that. So again, kind of working with that, broken down, you kind of see as the trade show hits, you can see the huge spikes and where the numbers are. So good. So along those lines, I said, well, okay, that was a pretty easy one. It was based mainly around just product cross-referencing and understanding that product. I said, well, one question I always get is, hey, I need a new system. Can you recommend something to me, right? You ever hear those questions before? And I just got a couple out on the show. People come up, hey, I know you deal with air conditioning and refrigeration, and I need a new system. What do I need to look for? Okay, well, I have a few questions for you. And really, this whole app is designed around our contractors. Make it easier for them to recommend systems. So what I said was, here's the scenario. Contractor goes out to the job site. Homeowner says, hey, I need a new system. I got a problem with the old one. Or the contractor does some type of evaluation. The system says to the homeowner, hey, you need a new system. Homeowner says what? What do you recommend, right? What do you have available? What are my options? And the contractor says, okay, well, by using this app, which is third-party, developed by us, I can put this information in and be able to tell you really what your annual cost savings is going to be for different systems. Okay, Dave. Looking at this one, about, 6,000 or so, 5,000 roughly, probably 6,000 by the end of this month. This one took off again. And these are, basically about a year old or so. So again, in an industry that's rather stagnant, we're still getting some good downloads. Now, what's a download worth? There's a lot of different definitions out there as what people think and statistics and all these marketing studies as to what it's downloaded. To me, it means that someone's with a retention rate of 89, 90%, it means that they're looking at their phone, they're looking at our logo, and really for marketing, that's good stuff, right? And for the price we've been able to work with SMS, upfront cost of these things, it's fantastic marketing right off the bat that we can get really in front of our users out there for this new technology. Go ahead. And you kind of fall through some of the different timeline as far as when you kind of tell by that when the trade shows are, right? When the really marketing hits grassroots for the trade show. Get next one. So what it looks like, well, the contractor simply puts in his name, where he's located, all that good stuff. We need that because later on, we have a nice little feature in here in which we can allow him to contact back to the homeowner and send them all the information that we're going to develop through this app. If you go to the next one, region, we need to know this. And again, this is a question that I would ask someone if they said, well, I need a new system. I say, well, where do you live? Because my selection, depending if you live in Florida, is going to be different than if you live in Minnesota, right? It just makes sense. And by knowing what part of the country they're in, I can then tell you what fuel cost is, right? I know what the prices are. I know what their load hours are. How hot is it in summer for how many days? All that stuff is all available through the EPA that you can go in and look that up in your area and know really, based on different system costs and efficiencies, you can go back and be able to do a calculation on an annual cost. And that's what we're trying to drive here. Last one's job info. I need to know what their current system is, and then really what replacement options I can have. Good, Dave. So as you look through this, this simple job is a furnace AC to furnace AC. Current system would be what the people have in their house, and then this is contractor's replacement choice. Again, this might be his choice, that maybe he gets good pricing from a wholesaler, or what's on sale that month, or a system that he's had luck with in the past, something along those lines. But we also allow for two other options to happen, meaning that our industry is controlled by efficiency standards. You guys have heard of Energy Star, things like that. So we have the maximum and we have the minimum of the industry. So again, we would hope that the contractor's replacement option is going to fall somewhere in between those two, minimum and maximum, so that the homeowner now has up to 3 different options out there as far as replacement. Kind of nice, right? So as you leave these on, it'll tell you, okay, we've selected now furnace to furnace, and these are just simply the input screens that the contractor would use to be able to decide, what they currently have on their system. It's good, Dave. So as we get that, contractor's info, where they're located, where the job's located, and furnace to furnace, this is what the job type is, we can now do a calculation. And again, this is where the app takes this information, runs it through several scenarios that are just your basic calculations that you would see on the EPA sites, and then run that into a cost savings for annual. Go ahead. So as you see in this particular scenario, if they stay with their current system, they're going to have 0, which they probably would have anyway if it's not working correctly, right? And then as you look at it, industry minimum, 20% savings, annual savings, if they go with the very bare minimum, industry minimum. Contractor's choice, a little higher, about 22%, or an annual savings of about $225. And then if they go to something high-end market here, variable speed, you're looking at about a 52% savings out there for what that market is. So again, if you think about the first app that we developed, that XREP, it's just basic, very static product information that we wanted to get out and make it easier for people to choose our products. Now what we've done is, this looks great, doesn't it? Say if I put this back in, and this is kind of my thoughts on eSaver 2.0. Since this came out, I've had now South Africa's been hitting me up for a version, Europe's hit me up, China, India, Canada wants different versions. The problem with that, I have to come up with load hours and all that regional standards that they simply don't have an EPA site for, Johannesburg, that sort of thing, to try to look that up and come up with some information. But understanding that, it looks great because all that information is right in front of the homeowner, correct? He can now see what he should expect. And if you do a real quick, if you're spending $300 a month for electric heat, what's going to be your payback on something like that? Well, it's going to tell you by what this estimated savings cost is back to when we put that information in. If you had electric heat or gas or propane or oil, it'll base that all back. So you can kind of go then by the estimate, because again, we're not going to get into return on investment so much, because again, those prices are set by the contractor. But when the contractor says, hey, it's going to cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to replace this, you can now do a quick return on investment and have an understanding where you sit, right? One of the things I'm trying to do with eSaver 2.0 is, say if the contractor offers financing on that, several different financing options, there's a price point in which your cost of financing is going to go down according to what your return on investment is. So I'm trying to play a game with that. Not so much the upfront cost of the installation, but trying to understand if you take X percentage loan, what's the return on that loan amount versus the period of time it would take to see that annual savings. So kind of playing around a little bit with that. But again, Through this then, it gives you another screen that you can then swipe through and show the various options to that homeowner. Go ahead. And then ultimately, when the contractor shows them all this, the homeowner says, what? Yeah, can you send it to me? Can I think about it? I got to talk to my husband, wife, landlord, parents, whoever, right? Find out, other contractors, things like that. Well, in this, it builds a PDF of all this information and then allows for that to be, again, this is why we try to capture that contractor's information, so that, again, it produces a very formal-looking email. They can change this as they wish. All they have to do now is ask the homeowner, hey, I can send you this information. It's very easy. What's your, and then that, of course, goes into the sent folder of the contractor's information. But it just simply puts it in as a PDF on that sheet, and we can send that to annual cost savings. Go ahead to the next slide. And it looks something like this. You'll simply have a kind of a pre-generated PDF sheet that information then, all the cost savings will go into this portion, and then now the information of the contractor's contact information is going to be down at the bottom. So now the homeowner gets this. Pretty nice, isn't it? All free, all available to the contractor to go out there and why. Why would we do that? Well, if we can get people to understand that there is a cost savings associated directly with the efficiency of the unit, and they decide to buy up, right, to a higher SEER or a higher efficiency unit, that plays more into our warehouse because those units, typically the higher SEER units, contain more of our products that we make. Not only just Copeland, but White Rogers and our flow controls companies and a host of other companies that make components for that system, right? So again, based around that product knowledge. Good. So another example of an app that we produced was that a compressor has typically an electronics module in it that helps the contractor, again, understand and be able to troubleshoot what's going on with the system. This is something that's we started coming out with like 2003. Reason being is that we started to do some analysis on what was coming back for warranty claims, and about 40% of the compressors coming back to us for warranty claims were simply called no defect bound compressors. It means when we took those compressors and we put them in a lab and ran them, they ran fine, meaning that there was some disconnection there with how to troubleshoot these systems or troubleshoot these compressors. And if you think about 40% of what you get back, that's a lot to eat, isn't it? Especially when you sell 7-8 million compressors a year like we do, and then you're getting, say, 30 to 40,000 of them back for warranty claim, and then 40% of those are no defect bound failures. It's not only a lot for us to eat, but it's a lot for the consumers to eat too, because of negligence or by poor understanding of the system, the contractor chose to replace the wrong component, right? So did it solve your problem having the wrong component replaced? No. Did you pay for the most expensive piece to be replaced? Yes. And ultimately, are you going to be satisfied with that? Are you going to have a callback on that situation? Well, yes, because it wasn't properly done. So one of the things we came out with was try to build electronics modules that would give indication of what's going on with that system. By doing this, we were able to reduce that down about 25%, that 40% about 25% down on those return compressors. So I said, well, that's great, but there's so much information out there on these electronics modules and how they interface with the system. Can I build an app around that that would now be a library of PDF documents, of understanding fault codes, and why not make it interactive that you can actually troubleshoot the system with this app, right? Kind of interesting. So that's really what we did, was we said, well, we set up on a title page and we say, do you have a protection module? Yes or no? And this is the contractor would be answering this question. If he picks no, it goes into a whole troubleshooting the compressor and system app portion, okay? If he picks yes, it goes into the library portion, okay? That would show him pictures and how the app revolves. So kind of stepping back a minute, this one's been huge for us, a huge success. This is actually a 4-star rated app. Unfortunately, you know, when you look at XREF, I think it's sitting around 2.5 stars, mainly because my side of the business is air conditioning. So we produce that database for an air conditioning side. It's got about 9,000 compressors in it. Can you imagine? 9,000 different compressors in that database. Yeah, it's in a SQL database, which is all searchable, blah, blah, blah. If you want to know the front end side of it, you can talk to me. If you want to know the back end coding side, get with the guys from SMS who set it up. They can answer your questions on the heavy lifting part of how that was coded and how it works. But unfortunately, that one's a 2-star. Not anything to do with the functionality of the app. It's because people expect more product in there. They want refrigeration product, and they want like standalone condensing unit product and all this other stuff that, unfortunately, you know, that database from my side of the game is built around the AC portion. I think we have like maybe the top 50 compressors from the refrigeration side, but appropriately, they probably have just as big of a, you know, a 10,000 piece database as what we do. eSaver, again, it's probably 2.5 stars out there on the different websites, mainly because people wanted to do it more, have it do more. They wanted to do really what it wasn't designed for. They wanted to do things like total heat load calculations on a house that you can type in, okay, what kind of walls, carpet, ceiling, how much load do I have on this house, what size unit do I need, that sort of thing. Way beyond just simple calculations out there of what it was designed to. So I always say if you want positive feedback, don't go to the internet, right? Unfortunately, that's kind of the time when everyone has you know, a chance to give their opinion about why something isn't right. So on this one, though, it's gone to 4 stars. People are relatively happy with it, so it's been good. Again, it's relatively new. It just came out about 6 months or so ago, and we're sitting probably around 6,000 downloads for it. Go ahead. And again, you can kind of tell when the trade shows are, you know, that's when it really starts to hit. So, go ahead. So what does it look like on the whole front end? Well, if they pick yes, it goes into a product category. There's 2 different ways of selecting your product. First off, you can go to the blue button here, and that'll actually take you into understanding just about that separate module. So I think there's about 18 different modules located in this library, and as they would flip up or down, it allows them to see a picture of it. If they want more information on that, they can hit the blue button. Go ahead and see what the next page has. It looks something like this. It gives you the module. It gives you what the module's about across the bottom. Now, info would pull up PDF documents that you can send or open on an iPad or an iPhone and read and zoom in and use it just like any other PDF. Photos have high-def photos of it by itself and also wired up within a system so people can see how it wires and what it should look like and really decide if they have that type of module in their system. And there are embedded videos too. So again, these apps work without, once you do the initial download of the app, they're all inclusive. You don't have to keep going out and hitting or pinging the internet in order to bring in new information. So in this one, it actually has a selection of videos that talk about that separate product. Now, if I go back 2 slides. I should have put another slide in. If I take and select, all that was available if I hit the blue button, kind of like more information. But if I hit just the module itself, now go ahead 2 slides, it looks like this. All these modules have kind of a stoplight looking little green light, yellow light, red light on the module itself. Well, it gets very confusing to try to say, okay, I've got this thing blinking 3 yellow lights at me. Well, what does that mean? Well, now simply put, you just tap, bing, 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 on your screen. It goes to 3. You hit continue. And then it puts you up, okay, flash code indicates the following fault. In this particular, where it's short cycling of the system, it tells you a few things to look for that are common to short cycling protection faults. And then, boom, you can go troubleshoot the system, which means, okay, well, your compressor's short cycling, which controls short cycles, right? So now, we not only tell them what's wrong, we start to say, give them a direction, kind of throw them a bone out there to the contractor. What was the percentage of compressors we get back for no defect found? 40. Yeah, 40%. So again, if we can help them to start to troubleshoot the system, do you think that's better off for us to try to reduce it? It's better off for the consumer, isn't it? You ever watch any of those hidden camera? Lou Dobbs used to do that all 2020, where they'd have people come in, they'd set them up on a scenario and set these up, you know, whether it was a refrigerator or what, they'd set them up and call in different service guys and get their estimates and look at them. You ever think that happens, real life? Yeah, absolutely, I would too. You know? We actually did that, we took these electronic modules, we actually did that down in Dayton at a technical session. We put these electronics modules on the system, and then we did it without, and we called in the guys that basically had been in class for about 6 to 8 months and had them troubleshoot and try to find what we did. Without the module, they got it about 12% of the time. With the module, it went to 95% of the time, meaning that it works, right? It helped the guy that only knew 6 months of refrigeration, heating, and air. It took him to a 95% chance of getting it right first time off. And for a guy that's maybe been doing it 15, 20 years, it probably saved him maybe half an hour to an hour to find what was wrong in that system, because it said, oh, you got an open start winding, look at your start cap, boom, right off the bat. 15 minutes, you change the start cap, he still gets his minimum pay, right? And you got the right diagnostics and didn't get, you know, 20/20, right? So again, by pointing them direction, it helps to give them that idea of what to look for. Good. And that's it. That's if you look at XREF, the Fault Finder, and the eSaver, 3 different apps that are really built around 3 different views of the product. You know, one, XREF, again, very product oriented, just a simple cross reference, and you know, eSaver, trying to help out that customer to buy up, to understand how efficiency and cost savings in their area of the country will make the right selection and also help them save some money in the long run. And then Fault Finder, giving that technician to try to reduce our warranty costs back there. That's really the reason. So, is there any questions on any of the ideas or products? Or, you know, and the reason why I kind of took this approach to it is I figured, if you have products or you work for a place that actually produce, it doesn't have to be a white goods style industry, but if you produce a product, think about how you can make that product either end user based, more friendly, user based, you know, more homeowner style, more friendly, or do something within the company, reduce warranty costs, something along those lines, make it easier to access information. You know, get that information out there. It goes a long ways to people understanding and using and be comfortable with your product. So, was there anything maybe that you wanted to know about more? And again, SMS has a booth over on the far side of, I guess that's a gym or study hall or in that trade show area. Feel free to come over and talk to us. I have an iPad with me. I can show you how the apps work, and maybe if you have questions that you're not comfortable with, you know, asking in front of a group, you can talk to us about it. So, okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I appreciate your time and have a great rest of the week.